Yes. Good evening, and welcome to the 2021 Candidates Forum presented by the League of Women Voters of Bowling Green and BGSU Votes. Our co-sponsors are the American Association of University Women of Bowling Green and Bowling Green Chamber of Commerce and the BGSU Retirees Association. My name is Ellen Scholl, and I am a member of the Board of Directors of the League of Women Voters of Bowling Green. Due to COVID-19, there have been many changes made to this annual event. We would like to thank BGSU for allowing us to meet in the Leonard Ballroom, which gives us the space to be socially distanced. And we're delighted that WBGU TV is live streaming this forum and recording it for future access on our League of Women Voters website. I would like to thank Ellen Dalton and her team for organizing this event. The union staff has asked us to observe their COVID safety guidelines, which are social distancing and wearing your mask while you are in the building. We ask you not to make audio or video recordings during the forum and to observe the League of Women Voters rules that the live stream tonight and the recording are to be viewed only in their entirety. The mission of the League of Women Voters is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation in government and select governmental issues. We are and have been a nonpartisan organization for the last 100 years. The Bowling Green League has been active for 70 years, since its founding in 1952. The League was founded especially to inform that half of the population who would be voting for the first time. Not to tell voters for whom to vote, but to give them unbiased and truthful information to use to make their own choices. A venue such as a forum allows you, the voter, to hear answers to your questions in the candidate's own words. The forum is not scripted. The questions have been sent to the League in advance and have been screened by a committee of League members. The candidates have not seen them. Besides this forum, the League of Women Voters provides a great deal of information for voters on the vote411.org website. For judicial candidates, you can find information on the judicialvotescount.org website. Both are free to use, and you will find them helpful. Our thanks go to Joyce Kepke and Shar Sher, who worked very hard to put both Vote 411 and the Voters Guides together. Additional information can be found on the Bowling Green League's website and, of course, through the Wood County Board of Elections. The League publishes a Voters Guide in print and online. In Bowling Green, we are very grateful to the Sentinel Tribune for making this information widely available. Remember, registration for voting on November 2nd elections ends tomorrow, October 4th. Early voting begins Tuesday, October 5th. You can vote by mail or in person at the Wood County Courthouse atrium. For those here in the ballroom, please hold your applause until the end of the forum, and of course refrain from any kind of vocal responses. Tonight's timers are Sharon Hanna and Barbara Moses. And now it's my pleasure to introduce your moderator, Ms. Lee Mclaren. Lee is the Secretary of the League of Women Voters of Ohio and a past president of Bowling Green's League.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you all for attending our candidate forum. We hope you find it enjoyable and informative. Here is an outline of the timeline we will follow. I will introduce all the candidates and read the biographies they have submitted. Normally, we do not invite candidates who are running unopposed, but this year, the unopposed candidates for City Council will be dealing with the same issues as the opposed candidates, and we thought voters would like to hear what they have to say. The questions for our candidates were submitted in advance by citizens of the Bowling Green community and members of the League of Women Voters. The questions were reviewed and selected by a committee of League of Women Voters members to avoid duplication and to choose appropriate questions for each office. We anticipate several rounds of questions for each set of candidates. Each question asked for a particular office will be answered by all candidates for that office. The first speaking order will be alphabetical. After that, we will alternate. As moderator, I will indicate the order of speaking for each question. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer a question. Our timers will be using lights to indicate how much time remains to the speaker. The green light will be turned on to show the beginning of the response time. The yellow light comes on when there are 15 seconds remaining, and the red light means stop. We will stop questions at about 8:30 to allow time for final statements. We will use the reverse speaking order that was used for the first round of questions. For the final statements, I will indicate the first speaker and the speaker on deck, and will continue to indicate the on-deck speaker in turn. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their final statement. Once again, I want to thank you for coming this evening. Let's get started. There are 4 candidates for 2 seats on the Bowling Green City Schools Board of Education. Norman Geer has lived in Bowling Green his entire life and has practiced law here since 1971. He went to BG schools at Church, Conneaut, Junior High, High School, and has degrees from Miami University and Cornell Law School. His wife Terry was a teacher at the junior high for 32 years. Their 3 children and 1 grandchild graduated from the BG City Schools. Their daughter Erin is a teacher. His parents were both educators. His commitment to education is rooted in his family background and experiences, and reinforced by his belief that teachers perform the most important job in civilization. Ryan Myers is running for school board because he has dedicated his professional life to education and wants nothing more than to see Bowling Green City Schools improve and flourish. Ryan has 22 years of educational experience, 17 years in educational administration, and 5 years as a special education teacher. Ryan holds both a bachelor's and master's degree from BGSU in both teaching and educational leadership and supervision. He also holds a superintendent's license. Ryan is well connected in Northwest Ohio in the world of education. He has many experiences in dealing with budgets, staffing, curriculum, and programming. Jessica Swaysgood earned her bachelor's degree in 2009 from Ashford and her master's degree in 2012 from Ashford University in operational management with a specialization in human resources. She has worked for nonprofits serving adults and children with developmental disabilities, and most recently in adoption and foster care. In 2020, she started the BG Voice to advocate for in-person instruction in a positive way via a Facebook page and yard signs reading Open BG Schools, an endeavor that was ultimately successful. BG City Schools was the only district in Wood County not to offer any in-person instruction for most of 2020 to 2021. Peggy Thompson retired from Bowling Green City Schools after 32 years as accounts payable. She has a master's degree in business administration from Heidelberg College. She and her husband own Guarantee Carpet Cleaning here in Bowling Green since 1982. She was involved with OAPSE number 311 during her years at BG City Schools, working on the negotiation team several times. She is familiar with school finance and operations. Her 3 grown children are all BGHS graduates. Several of her grandchildren currently attend BG City Schools. She feels her education and work experiences are very beneficial as a school board candidate. There are 2 candidates running unopposed for 2 Bowling Green City Council at-large seats. One is here tonight. The other candidate, Greg Robinette, chose not to participate. Mark Hollenbaugh has lived in Bowling Green for over 40 years and graduated from both Bowling Green High School and Bowling Green State University. Mark first served as BG's First Ward Councilman from 2009 to 2011 and was reappointed in the fall of 2018. During the interim period, Mark served on the board of the Wood County Historical Society, the city's Planning Commission, the city's Charter Review Committee, and on the committee to study historic preservation in the city of Bowling Green. Mark was re-elected to council in 2019 and was elected president of council by his peers in January of 2020. There are 2 candidates for 1 seat on Bowling Green City Council First Ward Representative. Mark Hanson is the Republican candidate for 1st Ward. Mark was born in Oakland, California, and spent 2 years of his childhood in Brazil. Mark graduated from Sylvania Northview High School and graduated from Bowling Green State University, 1990, with a bachelor's degree in education. Mark is also a graduate of the Ohio State Highway Patrol Basic Police Academy and worked for the city of Bowling Green for over 25 years as a police officer. Mark is married to his Falcon Flame sweetheart, Lori, and they have 6 children and 4 grandkids. Mark is an active member of Dayspring Church, and his Christian faith is the foundation of his life. Nick Rubando is the Democratic candidate for 1st Ward. Growing up in Northwest Ohio, Nick learned the importance of hard work and appreciating one's community from his family. He became interested in public service while working on the 2008 Obama campaign as a student volunteer. Last year, Nick was the Democratic nominee for U.S. Congress in Ohio 5. His campaign was built a robust coalition focused on community organizing, environmental justice, and creating positive change. Nick is running for BG City Council to continue this movement and make a difference on a local level. He currently works for the Toledo Metro Parks as an outdoor skills and environmental specialist. There is one candidate running unopposed for Bowling Green City Council, 2nd Ward Representative. Joel Oduricio grew up in Columbus, Ohio, where he benefited from a strong public education. He continued his education at Ohio State University, where he majored in fine arts. Joel is an educator, entrepreneur, dedicated father, and union organizer. Whether it was through his work as a small business owner or his work with the AAUP, Joel has spent his entire life crafting a better future for his community. He believes that the government should advocate for the public good. He will fight for a vibrant working class and make Bowling Green competitive and attractive for business in the new economy. There are 2 candidates for 1 seat on Bowling Green City Council, 3rd Ward Representative. Tony Hunter is the Republican candidate for 3rd Ward. Tony Hunter is a husband of 10 years to Emily Hunter and is a father to 4 children. Tony is originally from Coshocton, Ohio, and came to Bowling Green to play football at BGSU. Tony and Emily met at BGSU and married soon after. Tony and Emily are involved in the community through high school ministries at their church and run a flag football league in town called Upward. Tony is a manager in software development at a real estate investment company in Toledo. Tony has a finance undergraduate degree and a Master of Business Administration from BGSU. Rachel Phipps is the Democratic candidate for 3rd Ward. Rachel Phipps is the 3rd Ward councilperson. This is her first term on City Council, and she serves as the chair of the Planning, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee. She is an attorney, freelance writer, and stay-at-home parent. She has formerly served as the Assistant Dean for Communications at the University of Toledo College of Law, as an environmental attorney at the Ohio Attorney General's Office, and on BG's Charter Review Committee. She received a bachelor's degree from Miami University, a law degree from the University of Toledo, and a master's of tax law from Capital University. There are 2 candidates for 1 seat on Bowling Green City Council, 4th Ward Representative. William Herald is the Republican candidate for 4th Ward. William Herald is the current 4th Ward Council member in his 12th year of service, which spans portions of 4 decades. He has faithfully attended thousands of city-related meetings and has knocked on doors over 26,000 times. Wow. He consistently exhibits unrelenting dedication and hard work by studying issues, being proactive, and being a calm voice of reason. A Bowling Green resident for over 40 years, Bill completed 4 university degrees, married his lovely wife Karen, and with her raised 3 children, Jonathan, Joel, and Amy, and have 4 wonderful grandchildren. He is a data scientist at First Solar. Sandy Rowland is the Democratic candidate for 4th Ward. Sandy has served 10 consecutive years on council. She currently serves as President Pro Tem, Chair of Parks and Recreation, and is a member of the Finance Committee. She is known for her interests in attracting residents and new businesses. A realtor, she has been honored numerous years by the cherished President's Club, an honor given to the top 10% of realtors in Ohio. She was Regional Director for the Humane Society of the United States for 27 years. Roland was named Outstanding Citizen of the Year in 2020 by the BG Chamber of Commerce. We will now begin the question period. The school board candidates will be asked one question. When they have all finished, we will ask all city council candidates one question. Then we will move back to the school board candidates for their next question, and then city council again, and follow that pattern. Candidates, if you would like me to repeat a question, please do ask, and I will do so. Let's begin. First question is for Bowling Green City Schools Board of Education. The order of response is Norman Geer, Ryan Myers, Jessica Swaysgood, Peggy Thompson. The question is, do you support mask wearing in our schools during the COVID pandemic following the CDC guidelines? Please explain your position. First is Norman Geer.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for this opportunity. The mask question is one that we have discussed at length at our board meetings and with the public. I think I can be pretty concise on it. Number one, a mask is a tool against the coronavirus. It's not the only one, but with the vaccination, with the spacing, and the cleaning that we do, and the ventilation and air quality that we do, it is a tool that we have to have. The biggest advantage of it that I can see is that if a person in the school is wearing a mask and is exposed to somebody that tests positive, that actually has contracted the coronavirus, then the person wearing the mask does not have to quarantine. That means that person can stay in school unless that person exhibits symptoms of the coronavirus. So the mask will keep us in school. That's why we're doing it. Nobody likes the mask. We don't like it. It's not any fun to wear. It's hard to talk. My glasses steam up. But nevertheless, if we wear masks in the school, we will keep kids in the school.
Thank you. Ryan Myers.
I've said this publicly in a school board meeting, and I've said it privately for people that's all right if you want to get that beat. All right, we're good. I've said this publicly and I've said this privately. I hate masks. Even wearing this right now feels restrictive. I had a conversation with someone before the meeting about it's very tough to even tell facial expressions when someone's smiling, so I don't like them. However, again, when I look at our quarantining rules, which we have the flow chart. I have the flow chart up here. It's about keeping kids in school, and so when you look at our test scores that have come back from when we were in COVID, there's a lot of learning loss, and the last thing that we can possibly do is having kids out of school due to quarantine. I know we got out early and did the mask mandate, but if you look at several of the districts that tried to go optional at the beginning, a lot of them ended up going to mask mandates simply because of the amount of quarantines were out of control. You look at Lake School District that had hundreds of students in quarantine. I know where I work, every day I was seeing that, and we had over 200 students quarantined at one point. And as Mr. Geer said, it's about keeping kids in school. And until the CDC, the Ohio Department of Health, and our Wood County Health Department change those guidelines for quarantines, I think it's a necessity.
Jessica Swaysgood. Do you need me to repeat the question?
I'm just waiting on the timer.
Oh, okay.
Ultimately, it's really not up to me personally what my thoughts are about masks. I'm not a scientist. I'm not here to tell you why I think masks work or why they don't. My role here as a candidate for the school board is to let you know that my most important mission would be to keep kids in school. And right now, with the CDC saying what they're saying with in regards to having to keep kids home for quarantining, that's why I would be supportive of the masks. Should that change, then like any other decision that I would have to make, I would listen to the community and parents, and we would need to make a decision on that. But right now, the way it stands, they're saying that if you don't wear masks, you're going to have to quarantine. So that's what I would stand behind. The other thing I think would be important, though, is to make sure that those parents that don't want their children to quarantine, that they have a choice, because ultimately that's very important to me as well. Parents have to have a choice for their kids, which clearly has not been the case before. So as long as there's a choice for other educational tools for kids that do not want to wear masks, then I feel like the masks are fine.
Okay. Peggy Thompson.
Masks are very restrictive. I understand there's some, excuse me, some guidelines, but there's also other scientific proof that masks do no good. They don't protect as well as what we've been told. So from my grandkids' standpoint, I've seen them struggle. I've seen them having some more respiratory problems than normal just because of the mask. Sorry. Because of the mask, when you breathe out, your body's telling you that this stuff needs to get away from your body. When you're wearing a mask, you're breathing it out and turning around and breathing it right back in. So there is studies that show that masks, especially for children, is more harmful than good. So those are things that have to be determined, and I agree with Jessica about there should be some options, and if the parents and the children are not wearing the mask, there should be some ways to help work around that. Today we're 6 foot apart, and I'm way more than 6 foot away from you, so I don't see a reason to wear a mask tonight. It's restricting, I'm sweating bullets, and I'm breathing back in my bad breath. So it's one of those things that there's a lot of scientific information both ways, and it's going to be up to, I feel, the parents of the students, whether they make their children wear masks or not. Thank you.
Okay. The next question is for Bowling Green City Council candidates. The order will be Mark Hollenbaugh, Mark Hanson, Nick Rubando, Joel Oduricio, Tony Hunter, Rachel Phipps, William Herald, and Sandy Rowland. First up, let's see. Inspection of rental properties is important for ensuring safe living conditions for tenants. Do you support and will you vote for legislation for A, self-inspection by property owners, or B, inspection by an independent body of inspectors? How do you justify your choice? How could self-inspection be enforced? First up, Mark Hollenbaugh. Second up, Mark Hanson.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and their partners for making this possible. I feel that rental registration, which council has already passed, and rental inspections, which is currently before council, are important. That's why when I became council president a year ago, January, the first thing that I assigned to committee was rental registration and inspection. I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding as to what self-inspection is. Self-inspection has been mischaracterized as being what we've been doing for the last 40 years, and it's not. If you take time to look at the plan that we've come up with so far, it is a very comprehensive plan that I always like to say we want to do the most good with the least amount of harm. And I feel that the plan that we are currently running through its readings in council is something that does that. It allows us to correct properties that are deficient while at the same time not putting the city in legal jeopardy by violating anybody's Fourth Amendment rights.
Next up, Mark Hanson, followed by Nick Rubando.
Test, okay. So in regard to rental property regulations, I am against unnecessary and costly rental property regulations. This would be a waste of city manpower and resources. We need to keep the cost of rental housing down. I am against any rental registration fees. Fortunately, we don't have those yet. And inspection mandates. Any imposed fees will end up trickling down to the renters, making the cost of housing in our town more burdensome. The City of Bowling Green has done a great job informing renters of their rights and responsibilities via the city website. We have a great county health department and city fire department, both of which can inspect properties at the tenant's request. The city also provides information of what a tenant can do if a problematic landlord does not remedy an issue. Many people do not realize there is already an effective remedy in place. If a property is not in compliance with building, housing, health, or safety codes that apply to any condition of the premises that could materially affect the health and safety of an occupant, that tenant can take steps through the rent escrow program at the municipal court. Thank you.
Next up, Nick Rubando, and followed by Joel Oduricio.
Thank you so much. All right, so first of all, when we talk about extra fees, the plan that we have in place right now would cost about an extra $3 per month. So that's just what we're looking at, extra $3 per month. As a renter myself, this issue is very close to my heart. Right now, I'm lucky that I have a fantastic apartment, but it hasn't always been that way. When I first moved to Bowling Green, I couldn't afford much. I had to find the cheapest space possible, and my landlord knew that I didn't have any other options. My first apartment had 0 windows. People smoked in my building all the time, and I found that to be a fire hazard. So I went to my landlord, and I explained this to him, and he did nothing. And then I was advised, as you talk about, we have a policy in place. I was advised to write to the Wood County Health Department. I am still waiting a response from them. So, you know, I realize that there are plenty of landlords in this community trying to do the right thing, but when someone's breaking the law, the burden shouldn't fall on the renter. That's our job in city council. We're the ones that are supposed to be looking out for the health and safety of our community. So because of all that, I would definitely support independent inspections. Thank you.
Next up, Joel Oduricio, followed by Tony Hunter.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'll have to say that the cost being passed down to the tenant is kind of a straw man argument. I know that the apartments right behind my house have gone from $850 a month to $1,200 a month over the last 2 years. So if people are talking about $3 a month in increased cost for housing, that's a negligible cost in reality. They've already passed that cost on to the tenants. This is more than just a neighborhood issue. This is an equity and diversity issue. The university brings students in from all over the state and all over the country, and we have an obligation as a community to make sure that they're coming into safe housing and equitable housing. So the majority of landlords in town are complying with safety regulations, but not all of them are. I can tell you from stories that I've heard from my students and from stories that I've heard from my neighbors that not all houses are the same, and we have an obligation to make sure that our community is ensuring safe, secure, equitable housing for everybody who lives here. So I support mandated inspections for our housing and our apartments in town.
Thank you. Next up is Tony Hunter. He will be followed by Rachel Phipps.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Okay. So I would vote no against the inspections. As you know, a kind of a background in investments, we do a lot of work with a lot of management companies and kind of the real estate business. And so I've seen a lot of cases where if you put extra mandates, legal responsibilities, reporting requirements, things like that, you can really smother local businesses pretty quickly. And so I think what's most important is that any policy the city council is pushing should actually solve the problem that it's meant to solve. And so of all the city council meetings and hearings and things that I've heard, I believe city council has not demonstrated that it'll actually solve the problem. So it might grab a headline and we could debate the cost, which city council I don't think truly knows what that ultimate cost will be. I know it's been said that there's 600 other towns in Ohio that have similar ordinances, but I haven't heard anything about what is the cost that added to tenants, whether or not you could even measure that. And then the most important question is, did you actually solve the problem? And I'm telling you, I don't think these inspections, at least anything I've seen out of council, has demonstrated that it'll actually solve the problem. So again, you're creating additional manpower needs on your city administration. You're creating additional burden on the landlords, which could ultimately, we don't know, I think, because we know the inspections will lead to additional issues that will increase costs. So I think we have to be very careful about that. And again, we have to solve the actual problem. Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Rachel Phipps, followed by William Herald.
Hello, everyone. More than half of Bowling Green's homes are rentals, and I'm confident that we can all agree that rental housing should be safe. The city must continue to build relationships with property owners and to educate tenants on their rights and responsibilities. But I believe a rental registration and self-inspection program like that proposed by Mayor Osbacher can help to protect the health and safety of tenants, identify deficient rentals, encourage preventative maintenance, and preserve property values in neighborhoods. The proposed program requires landlords to register rental units and regularly inspect both the interior and exterior of those units. Critical provisions concern tenant education and the city's ability to verify self-inspection forms through city-conducted inspections. To date, council has received testimony from over 200 tenants by email, survey, and in person. Landlords have submitted comments. The local media, concerned citizens, and the community at large have monitored this issue closely, making the current proposal better. I encourage our community to remain involved as we roll out any program so that we can continuously improve using our limited resources wisely. Thank you.
Next up is William Herald, followed by Sandy Rowland.
Do I wait for the green light? There we go. Thanks for all that are attending and for the league for putting this on. It's an excellent question, and I can tell you as a active member of the Community Improvement Committee of Council, where we met at least 9 times, maybe more, and hammered this out, got considerable input. We came up with a recommendation that was actually well worded. It was about 4 pages long, but I will not read the 4 pages because I can't read that fast. Part of it is that we recommended a multifaceted, multi-phased approach, which emphasizes communication, takes measured proportional steps, and is forward-looking. One of the key components to this was that we didn't overstep, that we didn't initially propose anything that ended up being draconian. So what our philosophy was is let's take a step, after a while evaluate, see if we need to adjust or take another step so that we don't present something that's overburdensome. Our recommendation was that there be, and the question was A, self-inspection, or B, independent third party, and the answer to that is yes, A and B. We have an audit procedure included in that where there's a very modest number of audits performed to verify the self-inspection. Thank you.
And next up is Sandy Rowland.
I remember reading newspaper articles that recently were given to me by people who 40 years ago were coming to Bowling Green City Council begging that we have a reporting mechanism for rental properties, something to know who is in charge, how many people live there, and would also be needed by the public, including the fire department and police department in case of dangerous situations within a rental. I'm happy to say, after 40 years of being asked, the Bowling Green City Council has passed legislation that is currently in effect that mandates the registration of any landlord who has rental property in the city of Bowling Green. I have been told that there are 62% of the houses in Bowling Green are rental properties. So certainly I am of utmost concerned about the rental properties and safety within those rental properties. I don't want to repeat what others have said because of our limited time, but I also do support A and support B and an oversight inspection when reported by someone such as the renter to prove soundly that something is not right. This is not a regular inspection, it's certification. The landlord would be signing and certifying that was true what was on the paper. Never had that before.
Thank you. Okay, the next question, again, is for Bowling Green City Schools Board of Education candidates. The order of response will be Jessica Swaysgood, Peggy Thompson, Norman Geer, and Ryan Myers. The question is, the pending Ohio House Bills 322 and 327 would prohibit public school teachers from teaching historical information and or discussing current controversial issues of public policy. Do you agree with this? Why or why not? First up, Jessica Swaysgood, followed by Peggy Thompson.
Well, the way that the question was worded, I absolutely would disagree with people not being able to learn about history. I think that's pretty important to learn in school. I have heard some on both sides with these bills. I've attended and trying to educate myself about them. I get this question a lot, and really my answer to them is, being on the board, it's not as much as important as how I personally feel. What I would expect is, with curriculum, that is somebody's job at the school to do that. What I would do is, I would make the people who are supposed to make the plans accountable for doing so. Coming to the board, talking about curriculum. I'm not an educator. I'm, my personal opinion is, should people learn about history in school? Absolutely, okay, the way the question's worded. But again, my role as a board member would be, the school comes to the meeting with a plan, right? My job is that I make sure the plan's followed. I make sure there's accountability. My personal decisions on these matters are my personal decisions. I'm not on the board to personally represent myself. I'm on the board as a representative of the community, and I would act with many other questions that are going to be like this in the same way. As a representative of the community, making sure our children are educated. Thank you.
Okay. Next up will be Peggy Thompson, followed by Norman Geer.
Critical race theory is part of the issue with excuse me, both of these things. History is history, but you can always take a slant and decide which way you want to present things. Part of my issue with critical race theory and some of the effects of that is that we're pigeonholing people and telling them that they are more important or less important. And our Constitution states that we're all equal. And that's one of the big things that I would be striving for, because our kids need to know that they are important. We should be taking their concerns first. And I would like to see us, excuse me, produce productive citizens. And the curriculum, you can take a word and twist it to make things one way or another. I like the word equal. Our Constitution says we're equal, God says we're equal, and our kids need to know that they are important and not divided up either race or economic or whatever else might be the issue. Our children need to be children, they need to be educated, and they need to be educated with the truth.
Thank you. Next up, Norman Geer, followed by Ryan Myers.
Actually, I'm a history major. I graduated with a degree in history. My mother was a history teacher. I believe in history. I study history. History is something that is very important. Some of the observations about the study of history is that, or some of them are, those who ignore the lessons of history are doomed to repeat them. Another one is history is written by the winners. So what we really need to do is look at facts and teach facts. We have a state curriculum on history that we follow in our schools. It's not our job to tell people, to tell students what to think. Rather, it is our mission to educate them on how to think. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next question for Bowling Green City Council candidates.
I need to answer still.
No, sorry.
Just wait
Did I get everybody?
Just waiting
No,
on the timer.
I'm sorry.
I participated in that honesty and education that the League of Women's Voters put on to specifically talk about House Bill 322 and 327. And what I took away from that wasn't necessarily anything to do with CRT or critical race theory, but it was more in line with the basic components of education and history, such as free thought, teaching all sides of history with various perspectives. I think a lot of times when we're talking about history, we get, and again, we have to teach those facts, obviously. But just to go on something that was said, we're not trying to indoctrinate anyone. We're trying not to tell kids how or what to think or anything like that. We're teaching them how to think. We're trying to have them use critical thought in looking at a problem, looking at different perspectives as they're presented in history. And so doing so is how we create free thinkers. And so as students leave high school, they have the ability to tackle any type of issue because they're able to look at all different sides of an issue. And so going back to the original question, I would not support those House bills going through, because I think that we do need that honesty in education, and that we need to make sure that we're teaching perspectives. And again, this was not critical race theory.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your patience. Bowling Green City Council candidates, the order of response will be Sandy Rowland, William Herald, Rachel Phipps, Tony Hunter, Joel Oduricio, Nick Rubando, Mark Hanson, and Mark Hollandbau. Question is, what do you think the city can do to provide incentives for new businesses and manufacturing plants to build within the city limits? Do we need more? First up, Sandy Rowland, followed by William Herald.
The Bowling Green, the city of Bowling Green has had a very healthy economic development director. We now have a new one that is also working as hard as the past one to attract more businesses to Bowling Green, particularly those in industry. What Bowling Green already offers industry is low electric bills, ample and safe water, and a good location. What the city lacks, actually, is living space for people who want to work in new businesses that come here, be it downtown retail, be it teachers, or be it working in industry. We do not have enough housing for everyone in Bowling Green to live here at a reasonable cost, and many people, therefore, seek houses in other communities. So my belief is the best thing Bowling Green can do is take on programs that will reduce the tax costs of developers who want to come to Bowling Green, build more houses, get tax breaks, and therefore allow us to have many more people living comfortably in Bowling Green, working here and paying taxes.
Okay, next up, William Herald, followed by Rachel Phipps.
Would you repeat the question for everyone else?
Yes, the question is this. What do you think the city can do to provide incentives for new businesses and manufacturing plants to build within the city limits? Do we need more?
Thank you. When I was on council years ago, then Council President John Quinn asked me to develop a council policy on economic assistance to business and industry. The resulting policy stated in part, it's the policy of this council to encourage proper economic development for Bowling Green. The rest of the policy is at my website, shameless plug, go to williamjherald.org. The thrust of that was, back then, there was actually some discussion about whether or not Bowling Green should continue to grow. It's hard to believe now, but that was some thought. And the conclusion was, no, if we don't strive to grow properly, we will slide backward. And so that's what the policy emphasizes, proper economic development. Now, how do we do that? Well, what we do is we have a number of very good organizations that are engaged in trying to attract businesses. And these organizations work very well together, and they work well with council. And we also are blessed with having our own municipal utilities, which is a great asset. So what we should do periodically is analyze our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and get together as a group and see if there's any refinement. But we do have a lot of levers in place to work on proper economic development.
Okay. Next up will be Rachel Phipps, followed by Tony Hunter.
Hello, everyone. When we talk about economic development, we should be talking about all the ways in which we help our city grow successfully. Our city government must actively support a vibrant downtown, create an environment where new and existing locally owned businesses can thrive, and encourage a people-first strategy to redevelopment along East Wooster. We have been very successful in the recent past in attracting industry to the outskirts of town. We should certainly build on those efforts, but there's a need to diversify, and we need a plan to add jobs in emerging sectors. To get everyone on the same page, it will be important to update our city's economic development plan, which hasn't been revisited since the late 90s. This is a current strategic goal of council, but planning in and of itself is certainly not enough. We need proactive city leaders who can find common ground where there are diverse interests and deliver creative solutions. I want to learn as much as I can about this issue and get to work. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Tony Hunter, followed by Joel Oduricio.
Yep, so I think, excuse me. Hello. I think a common theme is that, Bowling Green, the local government, is a tool that should provide an environment for local businesses to thrive. I like to think of the city administration as its own small business. And so, like every small business, it has a role, and it can be effective at its given role. But if it tries to do too much, then things can, again, we're not effective, and the cost of kind of maintaining what we're trying to do is not going to go well. So I think that that's important, that the local administration thrive within its means and provide the incentives like the other candidates have mentioned.
Okay. Next up is Joel Oduricio. He will be followed by Nick Rubando. Would you like the question repeated?
Please.
Okay. What do you think the city...
Go ahead and repeat the question,
What do you think the
please.
city can do to provide incentives for new businesses and manufacturing plants to build within the city limits? Do we need more?
So when we talk about manufacturing, we have to recognize that manufacturing is in the middle of changing right now. I am a glass blower, and I can tell you that 100 years ago, glass blowing was one of the biggest industries in the region. But I personally have seen a machine that makes 1 million bottles a day, and I cannot compete with that. So people now are trained to work those machines. That's happening in every industry. In college, I delivered pizzas, yet I share the sidewalks with robots that deliver food to the people that live in our community now. The economy is changing. We have to make sure that the city is keeping up with that. We do have a good manufacturing base in Bowling Green, but we have to make sure that we are going to have a competitive internet infrastructure so that we can maintain a good, a healthy economic environment for new businesses to come here. I know people that don't go into work anymore, that work entirely from their home through their computer. So we need to make sure that those people can access work from home here in our community. We also need to make sure that if people are moving here to work in manufacturing, that there's safe and reasonable housing for them to move to. We know that more than half of our housing is rental. Affordable, safe housing will be important as we're growing our community as well. So it's a complex issue. We have to make sure that we're looking ahead and not fighting last century's battles.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Nick Rubando, and he will be followed by Mark Hanson.
Thank you. So I 100% agree that improving our neighborhoods, focusing on our downtown and sustainability are going to improve the economic development of this area. But I believe one creative idea is actually investing in a training facility for our Bowling Green Fire Department. So with a training facility at our Bowling Green Fire Department, we will have one of the highest ISO scores. So what does that mean? Well, ISO stands for the Insurance Service Office, and when our community has one of the highest ISO scores, that means that we will all pay much lower insurance rates. So those are lower insurance rates on our homes, on our businesses, on any new businesses that want to move into our neighborhood and take advantage of our lower rates, not to mention our safer streets. So when we talk about economic development, we're talking about investing in our community. Thank you.
Okay. Next up is Mark Hanson. He will be followed by Mark Hollandbau. Do you need the question repeated?
No, no, I don't.
Okay.
Okay, so the biggest thing City Council can do to improve the economy and attract more businesses is, number one, say yes. I can remember years ago when the Best Buy distribution center wanted to come to Bowling Green, and the final piece to make it happen rested on City Council. City Council refused to rezone the property that Best Buy wanted to build on, and they ended up going to Findlay. I mean, that's a big ouch. If the city approves a zero carbon plan and too early, too quickly, then that's going to increase our utility costs, and that's going to deter businesses from locating in Bowling Green, and it could send the ones that are here packing. And Bowling Green does not need more bars. We don't need expanded beer gardens and outdoor refreshment areas. The city is over-dependent on the alcohol trade. Our downtown business area has become a thug's playground. It's becoming more and more violent. I spoke with an officer who said that the Saturday night of the Black Swamp Festival this year was the worst he had ever seen at downtown. Many people would be surprised how downtown Bowling Green transforms into a dangerous cesspool of mayhem on late Friday and Saturday nights. Just last night, there was a shooting downtown. The victim was shot in the calf and transported to St. V's. We need to find a way to clean this up. Thank you.
Okay. Next up, Mark Hollandbau.
All right. Thank you very much. You know, I was sitting here, I know I'm not running for school board, but as someone who's taught history for over 2 decades, I really wanted to answer their question. I know what I don't know. And I am not an expert on economic development, and I won't pretend to be an expert on economic development. But the city does employ experts on economic development, and I listen to them, and I listen to other experts and their opinions, and I entertain those. And we realize, City Council realizes that we need to upgrade our vision of economic development, which has not changed since pretty much since the 70s. Yesterday we had our strategic planning meeting for City Council, and one of the things that we did was elevate to a priority for City Council for the upcoming year updating the Economic Development Comprehensive Plan to reflect current economic realities. I think Bowling Green is in a really good place. We're sort of equidistant between the intermodal rail hub in North Baltimore and also the Port of Toledo. We're located right on I-75, and I feel that we're positioned to advance economically in the near future. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is for the candidates for Bowling Green City Schools Board of Education. They will respond in this order: Ryan Myers, Jessica Swaysgood, Peggy Thompson, and Norman Geer. The question is, what steps can the school board, the administration, and the teachers take to make sure that all children, regardless of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religion, feel accepted and included in our schools? First up, Ryan Myers, to be followed by Jessica Swaysgood.
Can you repeat that again, please? Can you repeat that again, please?
Yes. What steps can the school board, the administration, and teachers take to make sure that all children, regardless of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religion, feel accepted and included in our schools? It's a long list.
It was a long list. I was trying to get all of that. First off, I think we need to make sure that we're celebrating people. Bowling Green is a very unique city in that we have a lot of we have a very diverse population. And so as students are in the school system, I think we need to make sure, recognize, and we're able to celebrate students. I want all students to feel that camaraderie of Bobcat Proud. I would definitely encourage our administration, our teachers, to be able to hold various, not committees, but various interest groups, and be able to let students build that camaraderie together, to make sure that we're recognizing all students and their diverse needs. And again, I just want to make sure that we're able to celebrate students from all backgrounds, regardless of any type of race, religion, creed, and the entire list. Sorry, I'm out of time, but that list.
Okay. Thank you. Next up, Jessica Swaysgood, to be followed by Peggy Thompson.
Yes, thanks. I think that's a great question, especially with the times that we're in right now currently. Really, to me, when we look at diversity in our schools, I feel like Bowling Green City Schools is not the most diverse. You know, the reality is a lot of Caucasians attend Bowling Green City Schools. I mean, that's just the reality. We have a very diverse community, I feel like. A lot of that comes from our university population and professors and other, you know, citizens of our town. But a lot of those kids do not attend Bowling Green City Schools. A lot of those kids attend private schools and other opportunities in the community for their education. So I would ask really with, you know, any hiring I would be doing personally is, you know, kids want to have teachers and educators that look like them, that represent them, that have some of their own views. You know, I would look at those hiring practices. How are we reaching out and getting teachers and leadership that represent the students that we have? I feel like those questions have to be answered first, and once we have representation that the students can look up to and have people that you know, they can assimilate with, well, then that way people do feel welcomed. They do feel like they belong. But if you're one of a face of, you know, not diverse, you're not going to feel welcome in the school system. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Peggy Thompson, to be followed by Norman Geer.
Diversity and inclusivity in any arena speak to equal access to opportunities. Sorry. Equal doesn't look at differences. Equal is there for everyone, no matter if we're all the same or all of us are different. Our students need to be students, not numbers in a category. The current vision statement of the school's website states, provide excellent instruction and equitable opportunities for each student. My proposal is to have this mission statement for our schools, providing instruction and equal opportunities to all students, helping them ensure their future as productive citizens.
Thank you. Next up, Norman Geer.
When I grew up in Bowling Green, we were a sleepy little college town. Everybody kind of looked alike. Now, I think we are more representative of the nation at large. It's a diversity that we have, and it's a Bowling Green that I love. I think this is the way we should be. This is the way that our children can learn, by being with other people that don't look like them. They can learn by accepting and understanding and learning about other cultures, recognizing that another part of diversity is economic diversity and religious diversity. There's all kinds of diversity that can be learned by experience. I don't know that in a minute and a half I could talk about how the board, how the teachers, how the administration could address this, but it has to be addressed. It's not a slogan that we can have that we are diverse, that we do value diversity. We have to do something about it, and the way to do that is to systematically look at how we can help. And how we can help would be the way that we would take it apart piece by piece and have a plan in place and make sure that we follow it. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for Bowling Green City Council candidates. The order of response will be Tony Hunter, Joel Oduricio, Mark Hollenbaugh, Mark Hanson, Sandy Rowland, William Herald, Rachel Phipps, and Nick Rubando. What is your level of commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions in Bowling Green? Give specific examples of other sustainability initiatives that you support. First up, Tony Hunter, to be followed by Joel Oduricio.
Can you hear me? Okay. I think this is, again, one of those issues that we have to really focus on execution. You know, I like to joke around that you look at, you know, execution is the difference between Tom Brady and Ryan Leaf. If you look up Ryan Leaf, it's kind of a funny joke. But So, there's certain things that we can do, I think, as local government that makes sense. But there's a lot of things that we have to be careful or we're just not effective and we're not going to execute. And I don't want to be up here again and say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and then not actually be able to do things that actually make a difference and execute and solve the actual problems. And so I think this can be one of those issues. I know there's a study going on that we're looking into the issue, and I think we should kind of wait and see how that holds out. But I think we got to be very careful. We talked about incentives for businesses. This could be one of those things to where if we again step out of our role as our local government, we can do more damage than good. And I think what you could see is increased utility costs and scaring away business development from our area. And so again, I think execution is really important. We have to focus on that. And I know a lot of candidates, we have a lot of sincerely held beliefs, and we should respect that. But again, we should focus on actually trying to solve the problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Joel Oduricio, followed by Mark Hollandbau.
I can say that historically, Bowling Green has been both at the front and at the back of sustainable environmental issues. So we have windmills right outside of town that were some of the first commercial wind generating energy in the state. On the other hand, we tied ourselves to a multi-decade contract to build one of the last coal-fired power plants that's probably ever going to be built in this country. I use a lot of electricity and a lot of natural gas as a glass blower. I can tell you for sure that solar power is cheaper than almost any other energy source right now. Wind is becoming cheaper than almost any other energy source right now. It's economically advantageous to accelerate our switch to renewable energies. We have a very decent recycling program in town right now. We're making a commitment to green spaces in town. I think we should not be afraid of the economic results of adapting to a sustainable environment. It's going to benefit all of us economically and individually in our daily lives to have a community that's clean and sustainable.
Thank you. Next up will be Mark Hollandbau, followed by Mark Hanson.
Could you repeat the question for
Certainly.
me, please?
What is your level of commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions in Bowling Green? Give specific examples of other sustainability initiatives that you support.
Okay. Again, I'm not an expert on environmental issues, but Councilman Leontis really took steps, I think, to awaken Bowling Green City Council during his time to environmental issues, and Councilperson Phipps has definitely picked up that banner and has led the way on these issues. I see it as a two-pronged thing. Again, we had our strategic planning meeting yesterday, and one of the issues that we're going to be looking at in the upcoming year is recycling and composting possibilities for downtown businesses. There's no doubt that we need to do more. We probably should be doing things faster than we are. But as civic leaders, we also have to be mindful that we don't move too rapidly and damage our community economically. There are a lot of businesses that now in their business models are looking at incorporating more green energy sources, and I think that Bowling Green should continue to lead in that direction, and that we'll find that happy balance between sustainability and viability.
Thank you. Next speaker will be Mark Hanson, followed by Sandy Rowland. Do you need the question repeated?
No, no, thank you. So I am not a climate change alarmist, but let me be clear, I am also not against green energy. I have a solar panel for my camper, which can run the lights, and my wife's CPAP machine when we camp off grid. You know, and if City Council could authorize the waiving of any fees associated with residents tying their own solar panels into the grid, I would be for that. But when it comes to a citywide low carbon sustainability plan, I believe a balanced approach is in order. If we force this thing too hard and too fast, it would not be wise. Let's let it happen organically. When the technology is there to ensure reliability of the grid and the price tag is affordable, it will be a no-brainer. Let's do it. But to force this thing before it's really ready would be wrong. I mean, most people are struggling to keep up with inflation and aren't willing to pay double or triple for their electric if that's what it's going to be. The higher electric, like I mentioned earlier, is also going to keep businesses out and send others packing. And so I'm for a low carbon plan, not a zero carbon policy. And a quick example why is the police department has an emergency backup diesel generator. It makes no sense to get rid of a perfectly good system that is rarely used. Thank you.
Okay. Next speaker will be Sandy Rowland, followed by William Herald.
Sustainability is very, very important to me. I personally work very hard to be able to meet all of my needs without taking away the needs of my grandson and his grandson and his grandson in the future. I believe that by following what our city is already doing, we are going to be in much better shape than most communities. 40% of our energy is renewable in Bowling Green. We have 165 acres of solar field, which is the highest in Ohio. Hydropower is 35% of our energy purchased by the city. We have a water treatment plant that uses only the best technology to treat our wastewater. We have 7,600 trees that are owned by the city alone, and we have 125 acres of nature preserve with 20 more acres just recently added. We have a sustainability director, and all department heads working for the city of Bowling Green are working towards more sustainability. Soon we are going to be able to see a police force that has a fleet of hybrid cars. It's in the making now.
Okay. Thank you. Next speaker is William Herald. He will be followed by Rachel Phipps.
Could you repeat the question?
What is your level of commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions in Bowling Green? Give specific examples of other sustainability initiatives that you support.
Well, my level of commitment is high. The best way to show that is to give you a number of examples that I have encountered or been a part of. Way back when, I was on council when we first started curbside recycling. I know that's hard to believe that a young guy like me could have been on council at that time. Also, a few years ago, I pushed for a sustainability board to be created. I didn't get that, but as a result, the mayor did put together an ad hoc sustainability board, which met and gave us some really good suggestions before ending their time. And then, while on council this past year, I thought, you know what, we don't do this very often at all, where we reorganize our committees. We have 7 committees, and so I proposed that we create a sustainability committee of council so that we would be better able to handle the myriad of opportunities in the future, and combine a couple committees, and council unanimously agreed with that. So I think that helps us get ready for being able to tackle issues in the future. And then there is some controversy about what the Board of Public Utilities did with solar panels being connected to the grid. I proposed that the administration put together a package to allow us to have a tax credit for people that want to connect to the grid. And there's more, but I ran out of time.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Rachel Phipps. She will be followed by Nick Rubando.
Hello again. So, you know, we have, as mentioned previously, so much to be proud of here. Nearly 40% of our energy portfolio is from renewable sources, which makes us a leader in both the state and the nation. I started my career as an environmental attorney, and now as a mother of 2 young children, this issue remains, you know, just so important to me, which is why I drafted the resolution calling for our city's first sustainability plan to measure and curb our greenhouse gas emissions. That resolution passed unanimously in July, and the process for crafting our plan has already begun. It is clear that the state and federal government will increasingly regulate greenhouse gas emissions more aggressively and prioritize sustainability projects. It is the responsible, forward-looking thing to do for our citizens and taxpayers to look at this issue comprehensively now. Regarding additional specific goals, yesterday Council voted to include as a strategic goal expanding a composting, recycling program to downtown. I think this is great news. Making BG more sustainable not only touches many aspects of our city's operations, but many quality of life issues for our citizens as well. A sustainable Bowling Green is more vibrant and inclusive, resilient, and resourceful. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Nick Rubando.
All right, so first and foremost, as opposed to what some people have suggested, investing in alternative energy will not drive up the cost of our utilities. It will also not drive businesses out of Bowling Green. It will attract businesses to Bowling Green. Sustainability to me is a mindset, and that's why if I get elected to council, every decision I will be making will be focused on how do we make Bowling Green a more sustainable place for us to live. So what that means in practice is continuing the commitments to our city's climate action plan, because investing in our environment and alternative energy is not only necessary, it is essential to our economic development, which we've already talked about. So, you know, in our sustainable future, we'll have bike lanes, we'll have improved recycling programs, we'll have new and inclusive parks, and yes, we'll be investing in alternative energy. We'll continue to highlight our food waste programs and our outdoor parklet programs because, like it's been said before, you know, our focus on sustainability is really what makes our Bowling Green community great. Thank you.
Thank you. We are approaching the end of our main questions. So in this instance, we will be providing another question to Bowling Green City Council candidates. The order of response will be Nick Rubando, Sandy Rowland, Tony Hunter, Rachel Phipps, William Herald, Mark Hanson, Mark Hollandbau, and Joel Oduricio. And the question is this. 12 years ago, Bowling Green City Council passed non-discrimination ordinances to provide protection for LGBTQ residents of Bowling Green, making this city one of the first in Ohio to do so. The city has also worked hard to address racial bias and incidents. What specific efforts would you take as a member of City Council to further make Bowling Green a welcoming, diverse, and inclusive community? First up, Nick Rubando, followed by Sandy Rowland.
Thank you. So I'm a Catholic. I follow the teachings of Jesus, and when Jesus says, love thy neighbor, I take that to mean all of our neighbors. And that's why I'm proud to live in a diverse, inclusive, equitable community like Bowling Green. And I feel sad that some people don't feel like they belong here. But, you know, what I look at is a recent study that came out from BGSU that showed that after sundown, people of color are 4 times more likely to be stopped by police officers here. And I don't think that that's right. I think that we should look into that, and if that's a problem that persists, you know, issue some reforms. Those are things that I think we need to really look at to ensure that we are an inclusive place that people want to come to, that want to live and want to stay at. So those are what I would propose. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Sandy Rowland, to be followed by Tony Hunter.
I started my interest in helping the city of Bowling Green be all it could be by becoming a member of the Human Relations Commission. That was several years ago, and at that time I also served as chair. During that time, the commission became very involved in the discussion about treating all Bowling Green residents equally. And out of that came a major effort to pass ordinances to make everyone equal in the city of Bowling Green. 4 pieces of legislation were introduced and passed by City Council, only to be not repealed, but only to be challenged and placed on our ballot. All 4 of those issues did, thankfully, become law after the residents had voted upon them. I continue to be very concerned with equality in Bowling Green. I helped the new organization Brave get off of its feet and get started. I am a supporter of La Conexión. I serve on a committee that was established by the city following a proclamation by the mayor and a resolution by City Council to make Bowling Green a welcoming community. We want to be welcoming to anyone from any place, no matter your color or country you came from. We are working hard to get new citizens in Bowling Green.
Okay. Thank you. Next speaker will be Tony Hunter, to be followed by Rachel Phipps.
Hello. So I just, when I think about the issue that we're talking about now, I just think about why I love Bowling Green so much. I came here to play football 10 years ago and fell in love with the community, and I met my wife, and we now are raising 4 kids here. And this community has always been welcome. And obviously playing athletics, our team was a mixture of kids from all different kinds of backgrounds. And we were a family. We still are a family. We just had homecoming, and we had all these, all the guys came back, and we hang together, and it's like times never changed. And so I just think this is one of those issues where, and I've had those kind of conversations, we talk about race relations and things like that. And you can tell it's a hard subject for everybody involved. And so I just think it's very important that we elect leaders in our city council and our school board that are going to do what's best for Bowling Green and try to, really, help to, support in these areas and not divide. And so, as a city council member, I will continue to do that. And I think Bowling Green is a great community. We got a lot of great people here, and I'm excited to continue to move forward in that area.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Rachel Phipps, to be followed by William Herald.
Could you repeat the question, please?
12 years ago, Bowling Green City Council passed non-discrimination ordinances to provide protection for LGBTQ residents of Bowling Green, making this city one of the first in Ohio to do so. The city has also worked hard to address racial bias and incidents. What specific efforts would you take as a member of City Council to further make Bowling Green a welcoming, diverse, and inclusive community?
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, we must absolutely stay vigilant here, and council certainly has a role to play. Council added 3 more protected classes to our anti-discrimination ordinance this year. And I feel lucky that our city government is able to work with organizations like La Conexión, Not in Our Town, and Welcome BG, all do wonderful work to raise awareness and make BG a more welcoming community. I also think that it's important that our leaders truly live this value. On a personal note, as a mom to small children, I try to be supremely mindful of the fact that they are always watching what we do. Instances of hate and racism should never be ignored. They must be met with compassion and action. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker will be William Herald, followed by Mark Hanson. Would you like me to reread the question?
No, I'm just waiting for the green light.
Okay.
Oh, great, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here in a minute and a half, as it is with all of these issues. When I think of the question, I think of my wife and I, our oldest son, Jonathan, who passed last year. One of his favorite T-shirts was "Love Thy," and then it had black, Jewish, gay, and went through a whole list, neighbor. And that to me summarizes it very well, that we as council need to set an example. We need to work well with the other boards and commissions and organizations that we are blessed to have in this community. Sandy mentioned the Human Relations Commission. Bowling Green City Council, sure, we're going to say it's important, but there's so much that the other boards and commissions do that make our job a whole lot easier. And as many times the entire lobby of the HRC meetings, I am able to assist as needed, and same thing with attending the Not in Our Town. So to me, we need to continue to lean on our partners and be receptive and set an example. And I think we've done a good job, but as Rachel said, we have to be vigilant.
Thank you. Next speaker will be Mark Hanson, followed by Mark Hollenbaugh.
Okay, thank you. I hold to a biblical worldview. The Bible teaches sex, one man, one woman, in holy matrimony. Now, I don't discriminate against LGBTQ. They are my mission field. The gospel message is that because of Jesus Christ's sacrificial, sin-atoning death on the cross, sinners now have a way through repentance to access the very throne room of a holy God and have relationship with Him through the covenant established in the blood of God Himself. In my junior high days, I got into trouble so much, and my parents didn't know what to do with me, so they started taking me to church. It was at a Christmas Eve service where I had an encounter with Jesus Christ, and the Spirit of God transformed my heart. The Bible tells us that the early church was full of sinners that were likewise transformed. Fornicators, idolaters, adulterers, homosexuals, thieves, covetous, drunks, extortioners, and on and on. In regards to the police department and racism, I want to just briefly, my experience in over 25 years at the Bowling Green Police Department, I can attest that officers are not targeting, nor do they have hatred in their hearts towards black or brown people. Now, if you're driving a car at night with only one headlight working, I need to tell you, you probably are a target. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker will be Mark Hollandbau, followed by Joel Oduricio.
Okay. Well, as someone who is straight, white, and male, I don't walk in the same world as other members of our community. And as such, I don't deal with on a daily basis what they deal with. But fortunately, here in Bowling Green, we have a number of organizations and committees that deal with these issues on a daily basis. And I think as a member of City Council, I best serve these communities when they are able to come to me and communicate with me the problems that they're enduring. For example, shortly after I returned to council, the Waffle House incident occurred. And council was approached by members of La Conexión, and they recommended some changes to the original discrimination, anti-discrimination ordinances. And I don't usually toot my own horn, but I would have to say on this issue that I did a lot of work to get those changes put into place earlier this year. And so when it comes to issues regarding these communities, I am open and willing to make changes as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Final speaker will be Joel Oduricio.
I'd like to tell you that this is one of the reasons that I'm getting into public service. Talking about an inclusive community is different than having an inclusive community. We have students coming from all over the country and all over the world. We have students that are meeting people that are different from them for the first time. We have other students that are very comfortable in a diverse environment. Our city has an obligation to make sure that the students who are coming here and learning how to be adults have a comfortable and safe community for themselves. That includes safe housing. It includes a police force that equitably enforces the law, not pulling over people that look shady. So we need to make sure that we are active in making sure that our community is working to include everyone. The work that Not in Our Town is doing, the work that Brave is doing, have already made changes, and those changes have reflected back at the university. The work that City Council has done to include LGBTQ as a protected class allowed the university to change its insurance policies to cover same-sex couples before there was same-sex marriage. So our work affects the town, it affects the university, it affects the students that come here and the students that move on from here and talk about their experience here. So we have an obligation to make sure that we are welcoming everyone.
Okay. Thank you very much. It is now about 8:30 and it is time for our final statements. We will use the reverse speaking order that was used for the first round of questions. For the final statements, I will indicate the first speaker and the speaker on deck, and will continue to indicate on-deck speaker in turn. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their final statement. Once again, I want to thank you for coming this evening. Let's get started. Our first speaker will be Sandy Rowland. On deck will be William Herald. Yes, okay, 2 minutes. They're very bright little timers, and you can see them from all over the room. And there we go. There. Okay.
We do want to all thank you for doing that. Looks like you've had the most frustrating job.
How about if we all just promise to keep it under 2 minutes?
That'll work.
Whoops. There. There. We went and changed the time length, and so that required the resetting of the timing machines. Okay, are we there? Almost? Okay. I'll read the list of the order in which people are to speak. Sandy Rowland, William Herald, Rachel Phipps, Tony Hunter, Joel Oduricio, Nick Rubando, Mark Hanson, Mark Hollandbau, Peggy Thompson, Jessica Swaysgood, Ryan Myers, and Norman Geer. And ready? Okay, Sandy Rowland first, and William Herald on deck.
Okay. I have something I'd like to tell you about myself. I absolutely love inspirational messages, and I frequently put them around my house, in the bathroom, next to the mirror, or in my bedroom, so when I first get out of bed, I have something to read, to challenge me and to get my day off to a good start. The last several years, one of my favorite messages to myself has been, the quality of your life depends on the seeds you water. It was about 20 years ago when I was thinking about what seeds I wanted to water, and having been a very happy resident of the city of Bowling Green, raising my daughter here, I decided I wanted to give back to my community that I loved so much. I've already told you that I was a member of the Human Relations Commission. I did serve a full term, and I was twice chair of that commission. I was attracted to doing that to serve my community because it was all about creating friendship and harmony in the community and really building what could be a great, strong community. So after 6 years of that, I decided there were more seeds I needed to water, so I went on to run for city council. The last 10 years I have served happily on city council, and some of the main successes that I have celebrated are a new city pool in our wonderful park, more wooded areas around the city of Bowling Green, many more businesses, many more different types of businesses downtown. We're soon going to be celebrating a new, freer Bowling Green when we have new codes. And we also will be working on better streets and sidewalks, which really makes me happy. I love solving problems for residents also. And I've told you already, but I'll say again, I'm a member of Welcome Bowling Green to welcome immigrants, and also Visit Bowling Green, attracting new people to come visit our wonderful town.
Thank you. Next up, William Herald. On deck, Rachel Phipps.
First, my thanks to the League and all the sponsors and co-sponsors. The question before you is simply, have I earned another term as your 4th Ward Council member? To answer that question, it might be prudent to list 10 qualities which you may want to see in your representative. 1, has experience as 4th Ward Council member. I'm in my 12th year as 4th Ward Council member. 2, seriously and faithfully puts in the time. I spent over 450 hours on council matters last year, and I may surpass that mark this year, not including campaign. 3, holds 4th Ward quarterly meetings. I've held 46 so far. I'm the only council member who has these types of meetings. 4, enhances communication between citizens and their local government. I circulate periodic 4th Ward newsletters and personally pay for them as an extra service. 5, goes door to door visiting with citizens to see how they and neighborhoods are doing. I've personally knocked on over 2,000 doors so far this year, and I try and knock on at least 1,000 doors in non-campaign years. 6, faithfully attends council meetings. I have faithfully attended council meetings for over a quarter of a century. No other council member comes close. 7, studies issues and legislation. I endeavor to hit the balance of moving the proper pace with opportunity for deep, non-superficial study and valuable public input. 8, attends city-related meetings. Overall, I have attended over 2,000 city-related meetings. No other council member comes close. 9, strives to be responsive and act as a liaison between the citizens and their local government. It's one of our main responsibilities. 10, is proactive with issues. If this above and beyond dedication is important in your 4th Ward Council member, I humbly ask for your vote by November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Rachel Phipps. On deck, Tony Hunter.
Hello again. Bowling Green is a wonderful place to live and work and play, and I feel so lucky to raise my family here. And I see great possibility all around us. During my first term on council, I've worked hard and learned a ton. With colleagues in the community, we have accomplished a bunch too. We passed a historic preservation ordinance. We called for a sustainability and climate action plan. We looked for creative ways to help local businesses make it to the other side of this pandemic. I want so much to continue working hard on behalf of the citizens of Bowling Green, and I would appreciate your vote on November 2nd. Thank you to all this evening's sponsors and to you all for watching and attending. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Tony Hunter, next speaker. On deck, Joel Oduricio.
So I know if you look at the news today, politics are very, very divisive, and you know it's definitely broken a lot of friendships, and it can hurt you know, a community. But I know and I believe that our citizens must continue to enact our civil duty, and stay engaged and stay in the game. And you know, and that's what I love about local government, and specifically about Bowling Green, because we do life together. You know, our kids go to school together, they play football together. Most of the people in here, as I'm talking with you, I'm sure my mother-in-law probably knows all of you, and if you're between the ages of 40 and 45, she's probably given you swimming lessons when you were a kid. And so, you know, it's a beautiful thing that even though we have a lot of the things that are going on kind of at the national level, the things you see on the news, that here in Bowling Green we can focus on policies that actually work and really help our citizens. And so I think it's important that every resident know the differences in the policies between your candidates that stand before you today. And so with that, and everybody, by the way, has sincere beliefs in how they think our local government should work. And so we should respect that. But I think it's really important, and I feel the need that City Council does need a shift. I think we need to focus on policies that will actually work for Bowling Green, not necessarily something that you see kind of at the national level. And you think about local businesses coming out of a pandemic, you think about inflation that is coming to its residents. We have to be really careful with policies that, again, are expanding outside of what our local government can do effectively. Because and I think from what you've seen today, I don't know if City Council has proven that. And so I think it's important that we have local officials that are trusted leaders that can really ensure that we're providing an environment for our residents, for our citizens, and for our businesses to grow. Thank you for the time, guys.
Thank you. Next up, Joel Oduricio, followed by Nick Rubando.
I'd like to say thank you to the League of Women Voters for giving me this opportunity to share my perspective with the community. I've been here for 15 years, teaching at the university, working with students as they go through, raising my kids here in Bowling Green. So I feel like I've got a lot from the community, and I'd like to give back to the community by helping keep this city as wonderful and warm, as welcoming a place as when I moved here. So, you know, I've done community service through my work for the union. I feel like I've helped students have a better experience at the university. I feel like I've helped my faculty peers, and I think I'd like to continue that work for Bowling Green and the community at large. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you. Next up, Nick Rubando. On deck, Mark Hanson.
All right, well, again, I just like to echo the thanks to the League of Women Voters and all the participants and everyone who made this event a success tonight. So last year, when I ran for United States Congress, I did so because I wanted to create positive change. I thought the Capitol was the best place to accomplish that mission, but throughout my campaign, I realized something, that real change doesn't happen in Washington. Real change, meaningful change, that happens right here in our community. And we can accomplish these goals, but we have to do this all together. And that's why I shared my vision of our city. One where we're a shining example of sustainability, where fair housing is a human right, and where we invest in our community to ensure that we are leading the way on economic development. And in my mind, the choice could not be more clear. We have one group of individuals up here who want to lead BG forward, and then we have another group that are trying to hold us back. And I believe that that mentality is dangerous and radical, to be perfectly honest with you. You know, our team started this campaign by listening. We were going out, we were talking to students, to community members alike, and we were asking them, how can we help you? We've had hundreds of conversations, and that's why our priorities are based directly on the needs of this community. And so my promise to you is that we will never stop listening. We will always be advocating for this community, and we will ensure that we are always available. So again, I just want to ensure that we stress the importance of going out and voting. Early voting starts this Tuesday. You can go and beat the rush, go to the courthouse Tuesday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. to early vote. Voting is our responsibility, and I know that we have a responsibility to lead BG forward. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you. Next speaker will be Mark Hanson. On deck will be Mark Hollandbau.
Okay, thank you very much for having me out here this evening. If I'm elected to Bowling Green City Council, my goals are to, number one, keep Bowling Green safe. In light of all the irresponsible anti-police, defund the police rhetoric, I will work to ensure that BGPD is fully funded and in a position to attract the brightest and best candidates. Number two, I hope to improve the quality of life in the neighborhoods adjacent to the BGSU campus. Being a college town, alcohol-related problems plague this city. As I've mentioned earlier, the Stone Fultz tragedy is a sobering reminder as well. And there's many families with young children that live next door and in and around disruptive nuisance party houses. And BGSU's Student Code of Conduct applies to students both when they're on campus and off-campus behavior. And I hope to streamline the process of reporting problematic students. If students can't live in harmony alongside families, then BGSU needs to kick them out of school. And thirdly, I will be advocating for a new Ward 1 city park. There are two trailer parks in my ward with almost 300 homes. There are a lot of children in those two parks with no good place to play. I will push for the city to acquire the 3-acre green space off of Parkview Avenue next to the two trailer parks and develop the property into a new city park. I'm hopeful the city can partner with private donors to make this happen. With the right funding, the playground could be all-inclusive, complete with sensory equipment, zip lines, and obstacle courses, and wheelchair accessibility. My kids and grandkids live here. I have a vested interest in making Bowling Green a better place to live. If you live in Ward 1, I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker will be Mark Hollandbau. On deck, Peggy Thompson.
Okay. I would like to again thank the League of Women Voters and their partners for putting this on. I think that this is a very important forum for the citizens of Bowling Green to get to know candidates, especially in off-year elections where information isn't readily available. I know I learned a lot tonight that I didn't know coming into this. And I hope everyone out there and at home learned some things too. It's been my privilege to serve the last 3 years on Bowling Green City Council. And I think I'm thoughtful. I listen. As City Council President, I believe that I have helped facilitate my colleagues by getting them in the committees and in places that they feel that they can do the most good. I spend more time with my mouth shut and my ears open than the other way around, and as such, I've learned a lot. So I ask, even though there are 2 people running at large and there are 2 seats, which means technically I can just vote for myself and get elected, I am asking that you all vote for me on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker will be Peggy Thompson. On deck will be Jessica Swaysgood.
Hi, I just want to thank all of you for coming out and for hosting this tonight. My biggest concern is kids first. Some of the things that, when I'm elected for the school board, I want to help fully utilize BGSU and Penta, keep critical race theory out of our curriculum. We need fiscal transparency, short and long-term goals available on the website and communicated so that the taxpayers know what's going on. Promote student volunteerism and explore ways that the community can help volunteer also. My desire is to see my grandkids become well-rounded, successful adults. Their education plays a role in the outcome. I also desire to see Bowling Green thrive. The current BG students will be the future employers, employees, and homeowners. I want to be part of seeing that our students get the best we have to offer. One way I can help is to use my experiences in education to help guide their education. I bring a grandma's heart to the table. I don't have all the answers, but my answers will be covered with thought and consideration for those that I serve. If you have any questions, you can always contact me at bgbobcatproud@gmail.com. I look forward to answering your questions, and vote on November 2nd, and I would be proud to serve as a board member for Bowling Green City Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Jessica Swaysgood. On deck, Ryan Myers.
I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight and for having me. I'm clearly not a politician. I'm just a parent that's here, as I'm sure you can tell by my answers to the 3 questions that we had, as well as me being the only one wearing a t-shirt tonight. But I just wanted to say that, you know, the reason I'm even here in front of you, I never really thought that I would be in a position like this. About a year ago, I started a movement. I didn't mean to start a movement, but it happened. People felt powerless in this community. They felt like they didn't have a voice with the schools. And I wanted to do something to help. I didn't understand why our kids weren't allowed to go back to school when other districts were going safely. I had questions and I felt like I wasn't getting answers. And so I felt like I needed to step up, and I wasn't going to sit quietly behind. I was going to do something about this. So that's kind of what I did and why I find myself in this position. I simply just want to make life better for our community, for our kids. I feel like what's happening on the board right now, we have a community that's divided, and I've seen that now for several years. I feel like what we've been trying to accomplish and do with our current board is not happening. So the only thing I can think of is that we need change in leadership. We need somebody that's going to stand on the board, that's going to expect answers, that's going to ask for well thought out plans and not be coming to meetings and trying to discuss what we should be doing. That's not the job of the board. We have people on the payroll that are supposed to come up with plans. Are we supposed to be creative and help out? Absolutely, of course, and I feel like I would do that. But I'm not on the board as, you know, to sit there and try to figure all this out, right? I'm not an educator, but I know how to add accountability, right? I'm in management, that's what I do. And so I feel like even though I'm not an educator and I might not be your typical board member, I feel like that's something new and different that I could bring. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker will be Ryan Myers, and on deck will be Norman Geer.
Thank you for the League of Women Voters for hosting this. Thanks for the audience for coming out. Most importantly, thank you to my beautiful wife, Lisa, who came here to support me tonight, shaking her head. I always knew, even when I was in high school, I wanted to be in education. I've known that since I was a teenager, and so that's what I did. I went to school and I became a special education teacher. It was in my 3rd year of teaching that I realized how much I enjoyed the aspect of leadership, what all that meant, organizational leadership, curriculum, and everything that goes with it, fiscal. And so in my 3rd year of teaching, I went and I got my master's in educational administration and supervision from Bowling Green State University. I also got my principal's license and my superintendent's license because that's what excites me. And so in the 22 years I've been in education, 17 of those have been in organizational leadership. I've been working with various districts. I've worked with over 40 districts. I've supervised hundreds and hundreds of school employees. I've handled and worked with multi-million-dollar budgets. I guess, just in summary, this is what I do. When I'm not a board member, this is what I do every single day. I'm having conversations about, during the COVID time, it was about getting students back to school. I'm having conversations about curriculum development, all those things that go into organizational leadership. That's what excites me. Personally, I have a son in the middle school, Mason, and my daughter Mallory is at Kenwood Elementary. I would ask you to ask any parent of any student or any player that I've coached. It's not just about coaching a sport, it's about mentoring. And so I haven't even been on the board for a year. And so I feel like I'm just getting started. If you've seen me at a board meeting, I think you realize that I can collaborate, I can disagree respectfully, I can keep a civil discourse, but I want to move the district going forward. That's what I do every single day, and that's why I'm running for school board member. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next speaker will be Norman Geer.
Thank you, League of Women Voters. And also I'd like to express my respect for all of the candidates that are here tonight. Public service is a noble endeavor, and you should all be congratulated for showing up and putting yourself on the line and talking to everybody. So congratulations to you. Now, I guess I should explain why I am running for re-election. I first discussed this with my family and to see what they would say about me running for the for re-election as a board member. They recognized that it was important to me and that I had a passion for it, and they said they would support me. So I got the petitions, went around to get signatures, and every single person I asked for a signature asked questions like, why are you doing this? Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind, Norm? And I said, well, you know, maybe I am a little crazy, but this is really important work. I am committed to it. I've started it. I'd like to finish it. I have been able to learn a tremendous amount in the 4 years I've been on the board. I had no idea that so much was necessary to run a school system, how many moving parts there were in educating the children. And I believe that our primary job, our only job, is to educate children. And that's the star that we have to follow. And I believe that if I'm re-elected, that I will make it a priority and do everything in my power to ensure that each child receives a quality education. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in thanking our candidates for coming out this evening? Thank you. That is our program for this evening. Thank you for coming here, and we appreciate your support and look forward to having a good election coming up. So, early voting begins on Tuesday.